I've been trying to put this video together for a while. I wanted to do a video on elves, but that's take a lot more research on my part of the elves of Middle Earth because I want to do something on the explain the elves of the Third Age. But I'm going to talk about another complex subject, but one that I had done before, so that I'm a little bit aware of what the wizards are, and to explain to you what the wizards were and what they are, in context of Middle Earth and J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. Okay, they're not like the wizards in Dungeons and Dragons, although Dungeons and Dragons, based off of Lord of the Rings, the wizards are a little bit different. They're not human. They're not elf. They are Maiar, and I'm gonna have to explain what Maiar is, and also gonna have to explain about the rings because they play an integral part in what the wizards were up to in the Third Age. And from the movie and book The Hobbit, and from the movie and book series Lord of the Rings. I will talk a little bit about stuff that comes out of the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, but mostly concentrating on the wizards that people know of, and a couple that you may not know of. Now, during the Third Age, there were 3 wizards in Middle Earth. We know of Gandalf and Saruman, and also Radagast, which was featured in the Hobbit series, which was actually just one book. They made it into 3 movies for money, I guess. But there were 2 other wizards that were known as the Blue Wizards. Now, there was Gandalf. He's many favorite of a lot of fans of the wizards. There's also Saruman, and his story I'll have to go into, his corruption. And there's also Radagast the brown, Saruman the white. There's also the Blue Wizards. Very little is known about them. Now, first to understand what the wizards are, we have to first get ourselves familiar with the Valar. The Valar, see, there's one god, and he's Uru, and I never can pronounce it right, so excuse me on that one, because I always hear it pronounced so many different ways that my mind never gets around pronouncing it properly. There were several Valar. They were like lesser gods to the one god. They did create some things, but much like Norse mythology, each god had different purposes, or not god. Well, you could call them gods. They're Valar, and each one had separate purposes. I compare more to like angels, because Tolkien lore is kind of a mesh of different cultures, mainly Celtic culture, Norse mythology, and Catholicism, because he was a diehard Catholic. So he put those images into his works, and so they're different gods. And I even have rabbits named after several of them. I'll go into some of the different gods that are important to this story, but all these gods had or Valar, I keep calling them gods, but all these Valars had servants that served them, that worked with them. They had like a god of nature and a god of the sea and all that kind of stuff. And each one of them had servants, and those servants were called Maiar. And that is what the wizards are. I'm assuming that the blue person is a Valar and the flesh-looking person is a Maiar. They're more like beings of light, so they take on human forms when they need to. But they're just like different levels of angels, basically. The Valar and then the Maiar. So the Valar serve the one god, and then the Maiar serve the Valar. And they go about their tasks there's a goddess of nature, and there's like a god of smithing. He's the one of the Valar created the dwarves, and one of the Valar created the imps, and they created other things in Middle Earth along with, the one god. So that's a little background of the Maiar. Now, one of the Valar was Melkor, and later on be called Morgoth. He was the representative of Satan, basically, in Middle Earth. He was one of the Valar, but he was evil. He turned towards darkness, and for whatever reason, that's him with the three Silmarils. He wanted to rule Middle Earth because he didn't like the way that Middle Earth was created. He corrupted Middle Earth, created the trolls out of rocks, and created the spiders and the Balrogs. But the Balrogs are a more interesting twist to this story, and I'll tell that here in a minute when I tell the different kind of Maiar, because the Balrogs were a Maiar. So I already said it, but I'm going to say it again later. But so Morgoth was destroyed in the First Age. So the Balrogs were also a type of Maiar. They were the ones who served Morgoth, or they were also ones that may left the other Valar to serve Morgoth or Melkor. He was called Melkor, and then his name was changed to Morgoth when he wreaked havoc on Middle Earth in the First Age and the Age of Trees. He was a terrible character. Now, this is a debate me and my wife have. I believe that the Eagles were also Maiar. They served the Valar, so anything that served the Valar had to have been a Maiar. They came to Middle Earth in the form of eagles, is what I believe. Now back to Morgoth again. Morgoth had a servant that he had with him that was one of his lieutenants. We know him as Sauron. Sauron was also a Maiar. He was a very powerful Maiar, and it is said that he was a servant of one of the Valar, who was the Valar of smithing and crafting and stuff like that, and so that's why he was able to make things. He served under the Valar that created things. Let me see what he served under Ule. Ule was the one who also created the dwarves, so he was a very powerful Valar. And Sauron served him, and he left to serve Morgoth or Melkor. But that's where he got his skills to create the rings, and he also worked to manipulate light and dark, which is the dark world and the light world. I don't really know how to explain it, but where the ring wraiths were when they were invisible, and when Frodo put on the ring, he was actually entering into this dark realm. That's why he couldn't be seen. The unseen world is what they called it. Now, Malkor, when Malkor was destroyed, Sauron survived. Sauron remained loyal to Malkor and always thought that some way he could bring him back, and that was his goal in life. That's why he created the rings, and that's why he did everything he did, because he wanted to bring Malkor back. Morgoth. Morgoth was his god. He served Morgoth, and he did everything for Morgoth. And he had a lot of powers. He could change form. The wizards were limited in powers. I'll explain that. But he wasn't limited in powers. He came to Middle Earth with all his powers from Valinor. He infused some of his power into the rings, his knowledge of the unseen world and other things, that he was able to manipulate life and death through his rings. Now, he was a very powerful Maiar, probably the most powerful Maiar that I know of. In the Second Age, he was putting the rings, and then in the Third Age, he was using the rings. Um, in the beginning of the Third Age, he lost the ring, and when he did that, he lost his form. Though he was slowly gaining back his form before, but because he put all his power into the rings, he could he had a slow transformation back into his bodily form. He never was that eye that you see on top of the tower. That was an image that he put on his soldiers' helmets, just like Saruman put the white hand. He put a picture of a orange eye, kind of like a dragon eye, onto the helmets of his soldiers. But when he lost the ring, he no longer had the power to control the other rings. He was slowly gaining his power, though. Over time, he would get a lot of his power back. But every time he was destroyed, he would never get full power back. But without that ring, because he infused the might of his power into that ring, he needed that ring to do what he was going to do to Middle Earth. Now, in the Second Age, was it First Age? In the First Age, the Valar came to Middle Earth to help fight the battle to destroy Morgoth. When they did that, they scorched a lot of Middle Earth, and it took hundreds and thousands of years for the earth to for the damage to be minimized. So the Valar wasn't going to come back to Middle Earth, and that's why in the Third Age, or actually in the Second Age, we'll talk about that in a minute when I talk about these Maiar that called the Astari. And they were the ones that were sent to Middle Earth, and they took on the form of old men. Their powers were minimized, not totally taken away, as we know. We saw these wizards do certain things, or read that they did certain things, but they didn't have power like Sauron had, because they were limited, because that was the will of the one God of Middle Earth, which I cannot pronounce, so I'm not going to try. So that is why the wizards were sent to Middle Earth. And their memory was taken from them, so they didn't even know they were Maiar at first. Over time, they were there for thousands of years, so they figured out probably who they were, and they were able to figure out some of the spells and some of the gifts that they had. Their purpose was to help men destroy Sauron and to take over Middle Earth, as the elves were beginning to leave Middle Earth, and the Middle Earth was becoming a land for men. This is a full map of Middle Earth, but according to the stories we know, they all took place in the northwestern part of Middle Earth, around Misty Mountains and the White Mountains and Gondor and Mirkwood Forest. Now the Blue Wizards headed east, and they were among the Easterlings. Now J.R. Tolkien has two different stories about the Blue Wizards. One that they got corrupted by Sauron and they served Sauron. The other is that they helped to spread discord amongst the Easterlings to lessen the troops that they had when they fought, the great battle in the end of the Return of the King. The Blue Wizards were the first to arrive. That arrived in the Second Age. Then there's Radagast. Radagast came with Sauron. He served the goddess of nature, which was Ulay's wife. Ulay was jealous because he was a very fair Maiar and sent him to Middle Earth with the rest. He wasn't meant to go with them, with the Astari, but he ended up being there anyway, which is why he never did anything really much to help with men. He didn't really do anything with men. He basically helped nature because he was in Mirkwood Forest, and Mirkwood Forest is being corrupted by Sauron. That's why it's called Mirkwood Forest. It was originally called Greenwood Forest, but when Sauron corrupted it, it became Mirkwood Forest. Next was Sauron the White. He was basically the top dog amongst the wizards. He was the highest ranking wizard. So he assumed leadership roles. And in the beginning, he was very much on task. But he got corrupted later, which I will mention. I'm going to bring him up again. But first I'm going to talk about Gandalf. Now, Gandalf is certainly the most notable wizard, the most written about wizard in all of J.R.R. Tolkien's books. He is pinnacle to all the stories in the books of the Third Age, the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which really wasn't written as a trilogy, but the publishers made him make it into a trilogy. It was one very big book. But Gandalf was Gandalf the Grey, and then became Gandalf the White, because when he fought the Balrog, and his body was destroyed, he had to come back. They gave him a new body, and he became Gandalf the White. He didn't have any memory of anything, but gained his memory back pretty quickly, and when he met up with the Fellowship of the Ring. Gandalf is many people's favorites and probably one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known wizards of all of fiction. There may be some more, but as far as I know, there isn't a more famous wizard than Gandalf. Gandalf the Grey was very important, and he helped men do the task that all 5 of the wizards were sent to do. We know that Sauron failed, and you could say Radagast failed too, because he did. Now I have to go into the rings, because the rings is important to the story. It's also important to why Sauron didn't do what he was sent to do, but Gandalf ended up completing the task anyway. So it has to do with a little bit of jealousy. And when Gandalf arrived, he was the last wizard to arrive in Middle-earth. And when he arrived, he arrived by sea, and he was greeted by Círdan and Gil-galad. And he was given a ring by Gil-galad. And this upset Sauron. Sauron had an interest in the rings, and I'm going to go into that next. Now we know the 1 ring and the 3 rings and the 7 rings and the 9 rings. You may not know them, but I'll explain them to you. There were 3 rings made in secret by the elves using what Celebrimbor had learned from Sauron. I think earlier I said Sauron, I meant Saruman, but this time I mean Sauron. So these rings were created in secret, so Sauron didn't know about them at first, even though in that new series he does. But the one with the diamond was given to Galadriel. That was the ring of water. The one with the blue stone was given to Círdan, and that was the ring of air. And the red stone, the ruby, was given to Gil-galad. Now, the blue ring was eventually given to Elrond, and the red stone ring, the diamond, was or not diamond, but the ruby was given to Gandalf later on. So basically, they were all passed on, except for the one that Galadriel had. She kept it the whole time. That's how she was able to keep Lothlorien protected, being as where it was so close to Mordor, and where people were looking for the rings, because it was near the one ring was lost on near the Anduin River. So, and that's right in the vicinity where Galadriel's realm was. Now, 9 of the rings were given to dwarves, but the magic didn't work on the dwarves the way that Sauron had hoped. It just made the dwarf kings more greedy, which is probably why the king under the mountain attracted Smaug. Was probably because he had one of these rings. These rings did not turn the dwarves into wraiths like it did to men. And of course, the 9 rings given to men. It was said that they were given to warriors of men who later became kings, and rich and wealthy, but then they began to fade into the unseen world and became wraiths, and then they were slaves to Sauron. Now, what a lot of people don't know or realize is that Saruman also created a ring. See, Saruman was very interested because he came from the same Valar that Sauron served, Ule. So, and Aule, I think, or Elwë. Anyway, he was interested in smithing too, so he created his own ring. When he was wandering around, and during the time that Sauron was back in the Easterling world, trying to gather up troops and corrupt men over there and to build temples for Morgoth, because his purpose was to bring Morgoth back. And so he was over there. While he was there, Saruman wandered into Mordor and found his books and was able to read them and was able to find out how to make the rings. So he made his own ring. So he also had a ring of power. It's not talked about much, but as long as the one ring existed, that ring had power. And the reason that Saruman was at that tower, where that tower was located, because that's close to where the ring was lost. And he was looking for the ring. He was actively looking for the ring while pretending that he was serving Saruman, while he was pretending that he was serving the other wizards. See, he was a very corrupt man. He had his own ideals that what he was up to. So to recap, we all know that he was pretending to serve with the wizards, but wasn't. And he was also pretending to serve Saruman, but wasn't, because he wanted the ring for himself. He wanted to have as much power as he could over Middle-earth. He got corrupted by power, greed, and that was his downfall. His end was the same as Morgoth, Sauron, and Saruman. They all couldn't die because Maiar and Valar cannot die. So they became spirits, helpless spirits, and were subject to the winds, as it says. They just blew around and they couldn't do anything. They're like ghosts without any power. And that was their doom. That was their eternity. So I hope you learned a thing or three about the wizards of Middle-earth. And, instead of watching this series, I'm waiting for the next season to come up. I really want to find out what that wizard is, and, the stranger, because he's definitely a Maiar. I think that was made clear. But, people speculate, could he be Gandalf? Well, Gandalf didn't get there till the Third Age. And he couldn't be Sauron, because Sauron didn't get there till the Third Age either. The only ones that got there in the Second Age were the 2 blue wizards. And that's what I think he is. The stranger in the Rings of Power. I hope that they make him into a blue wizard, but you never know. They've messed up a few things again. I still enjoy the series. I'm still enjoying it, and a lot of people don't like it. A lot of the purists don't like it, but I do like it. And I know I may have gotten some things wrong. Maybe I tried to get as accurate as I could. The problem with the way that I do things is I don't take notes and follow my notes, because I trip up over my words. So I just learn what I can and then speak it and try to explain what I know. And this is just what I know, and hopefully I did get it right. If I didn't, I'm sure any purist will write down. I'm not a purist. I love J.R. Tolkien as much as anybody. I try to be as knowledgeable. There's so much to know that my mind isn't got everything down. I wanted to do something on elves, but elves are so complex. I'm still working on trying to come up with a video about the elves of Middle Earth. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something, and I hope it made you more of a a J.R. Tolkien fan like me, a Middle Earth fan. See, I got my flag back there. Not flag, I mean my map back there on the wall. I very much love J.R. Tolkien's works and his fantasy world. So you guys have a good day and a better tomorrow.